The new 2026 reboot of Masters of the Universe is already considered a pretty major bomb at the box office. But hey, we went to go see it, so we're going to talk about it. And since neither of us grew up with He-Man, we're not going to be clouded by any nostalgia for green tigers or magic swords. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is David.
I come in peace.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together and we talk about a movie we watched, and this week we've got a new release that's out in theaters to talk about, and that is the brand new version of Masters of the Universe. So we'll start spoiler-free, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers, and if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, hit the like button, helps us out a bunch. Give us 5 stars in your podcast app. And if you want to support everything, you can do that over on Patreon, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So, yes, last week we revisited the 1987 film. I was going to say revisited, but for us it was the first time, so yes. it was just kind of like a trip to the past. But this week we're looking at the new one, big budget, MGM produced, you know, got the $165 million budget, and it's losing all of its money because it's only made like 50 million opening weekend worldwide. But
it's an Amazon original. They're used to losing money.
True, but I don't think their War of the Worlds movie cost as much to make as this.
No, it better not have.
If it did, there was some embezzlement going on or something. There was money laundering, or I don't know what was happening. Yeah. But
no, we had to buy hot dogs for Ice Cube, and wouldn't you know it, every hot dog is $300,000.
What does a banana cost these days anyway? $10?
Yeah. So my wife actually just started watching that, and I got up to that quote like last night, and I was like, oh, hey.
Nice. Yes, that's Arrested Development for anyone who didn't get that joke. So just to reiterate something we said last episode for people jumping out of this one, is that we did not grow up with He-Man. We were both after He-Man's time. I never saw a single episode. I don't think you did either. And
I mean, I'm more familiar with it than you do because of the early 2000s revamp, re-release sort of stuff that I was very mildly involved in.
But, you know, we are not the people who remember this, no. Which is funny because I feel like people would look at us at our age and go, oh, you must be the target audience. And I'm like, nah, it was before us. Like, you know, a good decade before me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's weird because, like, when I think He-Man, logically, I think 80s. Yes. Like, I logically there. But something in my gut still says 90s. It still says that it was, like, in that sort of era, and I don't know why.
I mean, it was definitely an 80s thing, obviously. I don't know. I mean, obviously, it would have still been rerunning, I assume, in some places in the 90s. I never caught any if it was airing in the UK at that time, but, like, certainly, you know, it was a thing at a time. But, you know, we're in this cycle of, like, I mean, technically speaking, we should be in the nostalgia cycle for the mid to early 2000s, but we're doing a 1980s cartoon reboot right now, which... Yeah. You know, apparently I heard some rumblings that they never even expected to do that well, but the whole idea between Mattel and Amazon/MGM was just to try and start building the brand up again. So I don't know if they're going to just be happily taking a loss on this in the hopes that it, you know, does well in streaming, does well over time, and then they can do another one or a spin-off or something and, you know, sell more toys ultimately is the goal. Hey, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, hey, like... I from Mattel's point of view, I think they probably sat down, they looked at Barbie, and they were like, we're going to make lightning strike so many times in a row right now.
Yeah, I feel like Barbie's kind of, like, it's not tied to a specific time period. It's kind of been there for every childhood for the last, like, 50, 60 years, pretty much. Whereas, you know, He-Man's very narrow, to the point where everyone kind of looked at this and went, like, who is this for? And it's like, okay, there's a very narrow age range of people who care about He-Man, and they're, you know, maybe between the ages of like 45 and 50 or something like that. And those people are, you know, maybe still interested, maybe, but possibly not.
It's weird because, again, it has had revivals. It has had other age groups that at least have been aware of He-Man. It's not locked into that one specific, but that is by far and away the strongest audience they have.
yeah, well, my point to what you just said is like, how successful were these attempts at reigniting it?
Well, I mean, I remember, I think it was 2016. I could be wrong on that. There was a She-Ra, which is obviously in the He-Man universe, that I think actually did do pretty well with like a young girl audience sort of thing. But obviously, this is not that at all.
I love the use of the word obviously there. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've heard of She-Ra. I vaguely know it's connected to He-Man, but I would not have said that was an obvious connection at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit that I do actually know apparently quite a bit about the He-Man franchise. Like, I don't feel like I do. I don't know like character names, but in terms of the structure, in terms of the basic plots and beats and all that sort of stuff, apparently I'm decently familiar.
Yeah, I am not. I knew very little. The only thing I knew in this movie were stuff that the 1987 movie kind of did too. And it was like...
Just,
you know,
not a lot.
Yeah, but it's like, oh, they had the castle, and yeah, there was this father-daughter pair of characters and so on, and that was kind of it. Otherwise, went in with very little expectations and frankly very little care about this as an entity. I didn't feel anything bad towards it necessarily, but I just don't care.
I get what you're saying. I am well on record of I saw the first trailer for this movie in front of some other theater trip that we had to make, and I was just immediately angry at it. I was so upset because like it just from that trailer it reeked of like fish out of water, Marvel, I see that just happened sort of humor, and I was just like, this is going to suck so much, not in a poorly produced way, but just in a we have to appeal to the largest possible demographic sort of way, which is never a good recipe.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't feel much going in, but like it did get surprisingly decent reviews. Like it has like a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is higher than I would have expected, and I was like, okay, well, at least it's going to be competent. Maybe I won't like kind of overall what it's doing or going for, but at least it's not going to be like, you know, laughably bad or anything like that. So yeah. Well, we'll see exactly how we felt, but we'll get into cast, we'll get into director. I mean, well, as I just mentioned, the director Travis Knight did Bumblebee, which everyone was like, hey, that was the one kind of good Transformers movie, and did.
I haven't made my way up to it yet, so that one's still on the docket for me.
That is fair. I also did Kubo and the Two Strings, which people do rave about. I've never seen it, but people do rave about it. So this is a director that some people would like to get behind. So just throwing that out there before we get into it. But I guess the simple thing is just to start with the question. David, what did you think of the 2026 version of Masters of the Universe?
So, again, I went into this expecting a trash fire. I went into this expecting like this is going to be the most like overly produced film by committee where like everything has to be so like uber protected and doing whatever. And I sat down, started watching, and it kept on being entertaining. Like, I don't think at any point during the first bit I was sitting there going like, oh, this is really good. This is like this is exactly what I wanted out of this movie. It was fine. It was good. And then it hit a certain point, and I don't think it's spoilers to say because this is like, it's just a thing in the movie. At a certain point, it starts playing What's Going On by Four Non-Blondes. And I don't even know if you're aware of this meme. This might be completely beyond you.
I don't know that song, but go on.
There is an ancient ass internet meme of just this guy singing that song, and it's He-Man animations are like synced to it, and it's called Hey 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 after the main refrain of that song. And the fact that this movie was like aware and did it, and they worked it into the movie, and they were having fun with it. From that point on, I just had a good time. I was okay with the movie. I thought it was good even. Now, to throw in my little negativity, there is some severe pacing issues, especially when we hit the halfway point. It comes to a dead stop and has trouble restarting again. And I will say that this self-aware humor, this sort of Marvel stuff going on, sometimes it plays its hand too much. It gets a little bit too deep into it. And I think everyone's got their own level of how much of the movie is going to be that. But I agree that that's there. But overall, this didn't feel like a movie by committee. I think that this felt like someone who wanted to have fun with the property and was given kind of the same sort of license that Barbie was given. Now, they didn't have anywhere near as much to say. By no means does this have as deep of like an actual interesting message as Barbie, but I do think that this movie was actually the sort of fun that I wasn't expecting it to be able to hit. So I'm gonna end up, just to really drive home this point, I was so dead set on hating this movie the whole time I was driving home. I was just going, God damn it. God damn it. I kind of liked it. Shit. So that's that.
What a twist.
Yeah.
What a twist.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I, like I said, never went in with a I'm going to hate this attitude. I just kind of expected to be indifferent by it for the most part. Well, where do I begin? So I would agree that this is clearly made by someone who likes and cares about He-Man and wants to do stuff with it. I think there is a ceiling for me in terms of my enjoyment of this, because inherently I don't see why anyone likes He-Man, but because this is the thing, I think it's a pretty solid to fine movie, right? It's somewhere in that kind of range of like, it's not too bad. I do think the meta sort of like, oh, we're sort of like doing kind of jokes about, of course he's the villain. He has a skeleton face. There's nothing deeper than that. Don't look for more meaning than that. He's got a skeleton face. Obviously he's the villain. Like that stuff was kind of grating to me a little bit, and just kind of very much this post self-referential era of mainstream Hollywood. But it was doing some things. It doesn't have like a super deep message, but it tries to tackle a little bit of like the idea of what masculinity actually is, to sort of get away from like maybe the complaints you might have about the show, about the muscly man's the hero and blah blah blah. So it tries to do something with that. It's not super deep, but it does do it. I will say though, and this is kind of the weird thing, and this is the weird detachment I have to it, is that I think if this was like the same team making a movie about a property I cared about, I think I'd be quite happy with it. I think because I inherently just like don't think a lot of He-Man is cool, or like, because for me, because I was actually really enjoying the music, I'll say that. Right as soon as this movie starts, this main theme kicks in. I don't know if that's from the original show or what. Is it?
It sounds very close. It's the actual main theme I remember playing at the end, like right before it cuts to credits. But sure. This other one,
but it's based on it.
Sounds familiar, but it's not the main theme. Yeah, it's based on.
Yeah, they've done something in the spirit of, and it's actually really cool. It feels really old school in the 80s, and kind of like, and there's actually a Queen song at one point, but it actually sounds like something that maybe would just be a Queen song starting up.
Yeah,
and that was like, okay, that's kind of neat. It's colorful. It's all this stuff and whatever, and I was. But I gotta say, so obviously the movie's in part building up to when he kind of becomes He-Man, right? He's going to get the sword, he's going to do the thing. And it's so funny to me that it happens. And I know that's a spoiler to say he becomes He-Man. It's kind of the whole point of the movie. Yeah. But it happens, and I'm just like, this is such a lame outfit. This is so, like, I just, like, I should be excited that the hero's in their costume. Batman's finally put on his Batman outfit, or the Power Rangers have finally suited up, because that's my era. I was a Power Rangers kid. So he gets to, and it's just like, it's a loincloth and a couple of straps, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, this is kind of lame. And a lot of the ancillary characters, I think just they're kind of lame, and you can kind of tell that it's almost like, sure, all these other things like Power Rangers and to an extent Ninja Turtles and Transformers even, they were obviously made into TV shows to sell toys, right? That was their primary goal. But you can tell He-Man was one of the first ones, because it's not like that well thought out. It's just a bunch of random toy ideas all thrown in together. So you've got all these weird different side characters who all just have a gimmick so there can be a toy of them, and that's kind of it. And that was kind of rubbing me the wrong way as I was watching the movie. Although, counterpoint to that, I will say the writing technique they use to justify all their names, I think is okay. I think there's an actual little smart touch there about how to do that.
I, without spoiling it, I think if you're gonna do it and you have to have a little tongue-in-cheek humor about it, it's fine. It handles it in probably the most deft hand that it possibly could.
I guess the thing is that normally when something's self-referential, and this is very self-referential, it usually feels not earnest. And this is a really weird mix where it actually feels very earnest a lot of the time, but it also does the self-referential thing, so it almost annoyed me more, because I'm like, you're clearly not ashamed of being this. Stop poking fun at it. Like, just be... And that's not to say that I want them to take it super seriously. Yeah, be silly, be fun, but, like, just stop with the weird, like, pointing out the contrivances and pointing out the tropes. Stop it.
Yeah. No, I there's two different aspects to this movie's quote-unquote humor, and I think that the self-referential humor stuff is okay, like you said, a little grating at times, but what really sold me is when they just got weird with it, is when they had like a really bizarre visual, or they allowed like just some weird stuff to happen to the characters and they didn't comment on it. That's the stuff that, like, humor-wise was really working for me.
Yeah, also, this movie's really horny, and there's lots of innuendo.
Oh my God, there's so many. I was so amazed. Like, not even just the horniness, but also, like, I wasn't expecting Idris Elba in, like, the first scene to just say the word ass, like, 7 times. I was like, is that okay for kids' movies? Are we allowed to say that often?
What do you mean, it's a PG-13?
I know it's PG, but come on. They're still marketing a little bit towards kids here.
It doesn't matter. It's PG-13. They want this to...
All right.
Like... This is obviously they want kids to go see it. That's by far. But the reason why it's PG-13 is because they want it to appeal to 45-year-olds who grew up watching He-Man.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
So this is not just the kids' movie. As much as it obviously is for kids, I'm not disputing that. That would be a stupid thing to dispute. It's not just for them. So
no, I mean, don't get me wrong. It strikes the same sort of balance, just in terms of like adult to kid ratio, that I feel like Barbie did, where it's that sort of thing of like, yeah, we've got all the bright colors and all the fun jokes, whatever, for the kids, but there's stuff for the adults as well.
Yeah, even more so in Barbie, because I feel like there's a lot more talk of, like, relationships and, like, gender roles and stuff. Whereas this never really does that per se. It just kind of
no. But it does draw on a few more just like blatantly adult concepts where kids are just going to be like, what the hell is human resources? Why should I care?
That's what your mind went. All right, okay. I mean, you're right, but I was thinking more of jokes about fisting people was what was popping into my head.
Oh yeah, but. What's wrong with that? Fisto fists people.
Yes.
Clearly that means punching them really hard. What else could it mean, Pete? Hold on, I'll Google it real quick.
There's a more fun way to fist someone, David. So, yeah, look, honestly, it's better than it probably has any right to be. And it definitely is made with a fair bit of love and care. It does have some of that sort of generic Hollywood look to it. And, there's definitely some scenes where you can just sort of feel them surrounded by green screen with a bunch of CG backdrops. And that's kind of whatever. But, I think ultimately it's like fairly well done for what it is. It could have honed in a couple of things that I don't like to be a little bit better, but there was absolutely a ceiling for me where ultimately I just don't think I like the property that enough to get beyond a certain threshold.
Yeah, and look, knowing you, I fully expected that, because this is like just one barely step into sci-fi outside of sword and sorcery stuff, like the sword and sandal, which you've never been a fan of. So I'm not expecting this to be right up your alley by any means. Yeah, it's like it has all this weight to the people making it because people grew up with it and it matters. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, really? Why did, like, I get you were children when this was airing, but why did everyone like this naked man with the sword? I don't get it. Because he's look, the whole thing is supposed to be the transformation fantasy, the same stuff as like Spider-Man, where anyone could be Spider-Man underneath the mask. The transformation means anyone can become He-Man if they just raise the sword and say the powers. Oh, okay. Actually, on that subject, I already thought he was a pretty buff dude before the transformation. Okay. But then there's like close-ups to like muscles like bulking out and like CG, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure you already had all those. You had them in a shirt so to try and hide them, but he was clearly just like, there was no Captain America. Let's try and make him look a bit smaller with effects in between the muscly bits. So this is the movie could do it whatever way it wants. It's not tied per se to anything in the toy line, but this is kind of a fallback on the toy line stuff where they just had one body type of like a mold, which was just muscle guy. So even when they wanted to make his human form, he was still just muscle guy. Like they weren't going to make an extra form for that.
Sure, okay. Yeah, but I was just... Because I didn't even realize that was part of it. It wasn't until that transformation happened where I think I was like, oh, would they try and imply he wasn't well built before? Because the entire time I'm like, he clearly goes to the gym. But like... but he also kind of doesn't because he's not very good at it. As one scene, I don't want to get into that yet because spoilers. But like, he like, oh, I guess he isn't, but he clearly looks like a gym bro. So
look. I think in the 2000s revamp, that one was animated. It absolutely slimmed him down. He was absolutely just this skinny ass little punk kid. But I think that this movie is probably better off of just. Yeah, look, we're just going to put him in long sleeves the whole time and hope you don't notice. Like, we're not going to bother.
Give him a puffy coat or something to really hide it. So cast-wise, Nicholas Galitzine plays...
Galitzine?
Adam?
Yeah, I don't know where the emphasis is.
Adam being the guy who becomes He-Man, of course, just in case anyone's... but he is Adam for the whole movie. Like they never really used the name He-Man in any great way, shape, or form. So, he is Adam, the master of the universe, I guess. We also have...
They're all masters of the universe, Pete. He's just one of them.
Sure. They're all masturbating in the universe. I'll give them that.
I'm glad we kept this one classy.
We haven't even got to the sword dangling between your legs stuff yet.
Oh my
Don't
God,
you worry.
I love that line. They just let that one slip right by.
So we got Camila Mendes as Tila, who is the daughter of the father-daughter pair. Kind of, I guess, the main love interest and kind of female lead of the movie.
Yeah, definitely female lead. Warrior, princess sort of vibes.
Yeah. Idris Elba plays her father, Duncan, aka Master at Arms, which is just his job title, so... that's fine. Jared Leto, though, I know you were looking forward to this. Jared Leto as Skeletor.
Look, I read up a little bit on it, and I know that there was apparently like actual filming with Jared Leto in the scene and whatever, and then they just did like CGI over top of his performance. So theoretically, yes, Jared Leto was there, but like... he's putting on a voice. He's completely CGI'd out. By all intents and purposes, there is no Jared Leto in this movie.
Yeah, you can't really tell it's him. I mean, that's very safe. So, but yeah, he's technically the one doing that. We have a bunch of other like side characters who I don't think have casts that are worth mentioning, but a couple of notable names here. Alison Brie is there as Evelyn, who I remembered from the 1987 movie, of course.
Yep.
So she's the villain second in command. And then we also have Morena Baccarin from Firefly, who is the sorceress, the mystical lady who like knows all the magic secrets and protects the sword or some shit.
Yeah, she's just the guardian of Grayskull.
Yeah. And then Kristen Wiig's the voice of a robot that shows up a chunk into the movie, which is like, okay.
Yeah. Look, if there's any character that got extremely underserved by this movie that like it felt like it was trying to play up, it's the robot. That robot was barely here.
So yeah, I think that's all the notable names in the main cast. Obviously, there's a few other kind of like side characters like Fisto, like Ram Man, or other villains like Trapjaw. But like, I don't think the cast are necessarily sticking out to me as notable. So maybe they will become notable in time, but not yet. So.
I was gonna say if Mattel's looking for a franchise, like without any spoiling of how this movie ends, I'm okay with having a sequel. Will I see it? I don't know, but I'm okay with it existing.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how much they want to kind of like commit to building up a brand. Like, is it worth doing a whole trilogy even if they underperform, just so that people can keep discovering them on Prime for years?
The only thing I hope Mattel does, and this is going to be hard for the executives to resist, but for the love of God, just build up each franchise without having that urge to cross them all over.
Oh,
I don't want the toy box scene. Don't do the toy box scene.
It's so funny though, because as soon as Barbie was a hit, I remember what some executive from Mattel saying, "Oh, we want to build up the Mattel cinematic universe," and it was like and it was like a list of things, and some of them are like, okay, you can sort of see He-Man and Barbie, and not that they belong together, but you can kind of see how you could interact them. But there was a couple of things in there they wanted to make movies of that were like board games, and you're like, what the hell are you doing? You can't cross over like this with that. That doesn't make any sense.
Look, I've got the Mattel Studios wiki page pulled up here.
Oh, go on.
They've already got a release date for Matchbox Cars, the movie.
Never heard of it.
Coming down the line, we've got Thomas and Friends, Barney, American Girl Dolls, Hot Wheels, Magic 8 Ball, which that's something. Uno's somewhere on the docket.
Magic 8 Ball, I can at least see. I mean, I don't think they're going to do this, but I could see a horror movie where the Magic 8 Ball keeps like giving them really bad like omens or something. But yeah,
Tony the Tattooed Man. I don't even know what that is.
I've never heard of it.
So look, just keep each of them, develop each one of these as their own property. I don't need to see He-Man in a Hot Wheels car. I don't need to see Barney with the Rock'em Sock'em robots. Okay, we just do which ones you need to do here.
I have nothing to add. So yeah, cast. Like I said, music's good. Some of the song choices are also fairly inspired. Although it's funny actually, the Queen song that pops up, like I get why they've picked it, at least like for one reason, but it also felt like a double reason, because that song's associated with another movie, David, and that movie was referenced in this movie earlier on. Someone cracked a joke about him being Highlander. And Highlander famously has an all-Queen soundtrack headlined by Prince of the Universe, or Princes of the Universe, whatever it's called. So I was like, damn, they're really like the Highlander reboot's coming. I don't even think it's got anything to do with this company, but maybe they're just, hey, we'll throw you a bone, we'll advertise it a little bit for you.
I doubt it. I think it's 100% from the idea of, it's called Masters of the Universe.
Yes.
Why not Princes of the Universe?
For sure, yes. Unfortunately, Freddie Mercury's not around to do an alternate version for them.
No, but wasn't the end credit song
Brian
someone
May.
doing that?
Yeah, Brian May from Queen. Yes. Yeah,
switched it over to Masters of the Universe, so technically.
But Freddie's not around though to sing it for them, and that's he's been gone for a while, admittedly, but still. It's as far as anything, I mean, it's got some stuff. I agree with pacing issues. I think it does sort of hit a bit of a halt in the middle. I do also think, like, I could see an argument for some like the Earth section to just kind of be reshaped into not being an Earth section if you didn't want to do the fish out of water stuff. But it's like they wanted to do it, so hey, it's there.
Yeah, I mean, I think for being a fish out of water section, I think that they kept it mercifully short. I think that they made it very useful for the rest of the movie because it does play into like core themes that are going on.
It's kind of weird though, because it's not really a fish out of water in the sense that he's grown up. We jump ahead to him as an adult, so it's like he's kind of used to Earth by this point. He's not really that much of a fish out of water anymore.
Yeah, but he also doesn't belong there. Like his entire thing is like, I got to get back to Eternia. I remember it because I was like 10 years old. I was an infant, so he doesn't feel like he fits there either. And so you get an interesting idea about like identity and like true belonging and stuff like that as well.
Well, there you go. that's
So I guess just before we go into spoilers, from someone who is not familiar with the He-Man franchise at all and knows nothing else about it, for someone else in your situation, would you suggest that they go see it?
I mean, if there was nothing else playing and you wanted to see a movie, yeah, it'd be fine to go see it. But in the context of, no, there's like 3 other movies right now that are very recommendable, no, go see those instead.
Everyone go see Mandalorian and Grogu. That's what Pete's talking about. No.
I'm talking about Obsession. And maybe Backrooms, but definitely Obsession. Everyone should go see Obsession. That includes you, David. Go see Obsession.
All right, I'll gladly see it once I can try to explain to my wife why I keep on leaving her at home while I go out to the movies.
You can take her. It's just
she doesn't want to. Do you know how hard it was to convince her? I'm like, hey, I'm going to see another He-Man movie after the one you already watched.
Obsession's fantastic, though. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. I better stop. I'm just going to talk about Obsession for another 2 hours.
Call up Tim. What's he up to? Let's get him in here.
All right. We'll get into spoilers then for Masters of the Universe, and you've been warned. So let's get into it, shall we? So I mean, yeah, the first couple of chunks of the movie break down quite neatly. You've got the 10-year-old section when he's in Eternia, and this is the whole, you know, showing his family, showing that his dad's kind of disappointed on him because he's not that good a fighter. He's kind of the little runt who's not good at anything, but he's friends with Tila, who's good at class. She's the daughter of the guy teaching them, and it's like, okay, all right, it's setting some of your themes and some of this like sort of like guilt he's going to grow up with of like not being strong enough and not being good enough and all that.
Yeah.
So.
And especially, like, you know, it seems like for the most part, he already has some guilt over it himself. But then his father comes in and, like, does the whole, let's fight with real swords. Let's do all that stuff. And when he ends up falling down to the ground, he just feels like an absolute failure for his father.
Yeah, his father being the king, by the way, just to make that clear. Adam's the prince of Eternia, which doesn't count for much once Skeletor's army shows up and we get a glimpse of some of his bad guys. There's actually one of the people I noticed during the fighting in this section that I assume was one of the bad guys, but later on turned out to be one of the good guys, and that was Mechaneck. I just, like, when it cut to him at one point, I just assumed he was a bad guy killing an innocent person, but it was actually him fighting a bad guy.
Yeah, he gives very, very Plastic Man vibes.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Plastic Man kind of started as a villainous thing, so, or not villainous, but criminal, so maybe that's where it's coming from. I
didn't think any of the hero characters had like a gimmick like that, because it felt like all of it was the villains that had, you know, one's like a beast looking dude, one's got a metal jaw, one's got a whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, well, I mean, that's in the beginning of the movie, that makes sense, but then we very quickly get introduced to Ram Man and Fisto and all the other ones.
Ram Man's just got like a Juggernaut helmet on. That's all his thing is.
True.
All right.
Yeah.
He's that. I mean, shout out to, because the other person that's introduced with that group is Dion, who is kind of our other lady character, but she doesn't have any abilities. She doesn't have a fancy suit or any gimmicks. She just goes in dual wielding pistols and ends up looking the most badass of the whole group later on. So credit to her.
Oh yeah. I know she wasn't part of like the original release, but I can't remember where she showed up from. She was from the comics, so she got adapted from there. Probably just to be like, wow, it's a real sausage fest around here.
Very, very lately. But to be fair, you know, she ended up having some of the more badass moments when we got the ensemble fight things later on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, you know, that's neat. But yeah, I mean, a lot of this is running away, the family running for cover, Idris Elba trying to protect them. Elba has a standoff with Trapjaw, and he kind of holds his own, but Trapjaw's pretty menacing and ends up blasting him in the chest, and you know, Tila has to wake him up and he jumps out the window with Tila just as the explosion goes off and all the rest of it. But all of this is just prelude to, the sorceress says, hey, young Adam, here, hold the sword for me. Right, that'll get you home. Here's a portal. Off you go. You escape with it so Skeletor doesn't get it. And that's kind of...
But don't lose the sword. You need to raise the sword back up over your head to come home. Don't lose the sword.
And he immediately lets go halfway through the portal.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I mean, we also see the king kind of try and fight off Skeletor's army by himself, so he gets to look a little badass for a minute.
Yeah. The king tries to fight him off. He does okay, but he gets caught. The queen lasts like one magic blast from Evelyn. She's automatically taken out. And then the sorceress puts up a shield, turns into a bird, and flies away.
Yeah, she just ditches everyone. Good job, sorceress.
She's not going to do anybody any help until He-Man comes around.
Yeah, I guess. But Skeletor's obviously pissed that the sword's gone, and he's monologuing. He's doing all sorts, and he's not getting anything. I does have one silly moment here, because later on there's a lot of like let's point out just kind of how silly Skeletor is. There is one moment actually here in the opening scene where he kind of raises his fist at the end of a speech, and then no one does anything, and then he turns and complains that when he holds up his fist like that, that's the time to react and everyone to cheer and yell or whatever. And Alison Brie has to awkwardly say, "Oh, sorry, sir. Sorry. Do you want to go again? we'll react the way you want us to."
Here's the thing. Based off of my knowledge of Skeletor, I like him kind of being a bumbling villain character. Like, I like him being this sort of like guy who's got these evil plans, but like just knows that he's always going to fail. Like, that sort of character there. That is not this character. This character is very competent at what they do. They just occasionally have these moments of, oh, how silly. And it's fine, but it's a difference of character presentation.
It's like a little camp, silly ass, like, punctuation in the end of his character, as opposed to feeling something that says like. But again, I've never seen the animated series. I have no idea. Was he like this in the show? Was he constantly like saying this kind of thing and making mistakes? No. He
was constantly making mistakes, but that's the thing, is he was kind of bumbling. It was always a thing of, we know good's going to win in the end, so he's just kind of like, and that's the thing. He also had a very, like, the original voice actor had a very not high pitched, but nasally sort of voice for him. So he was going around like, "Hey man, what are you doing here?" And having Jared Leto come in with this sort of bassier, I think English. I picked up a little bit of something.
It's English. I mean, honestly, there was a couple of lines in the first part where he was talking to the king where I thought he's almost like he's going for like a Bane, like a Tom Hardy Bane. And then that kind of faded away though, and it felt more generically just villainous evil for the rest of the movie. Yeah. But, you know, it's fine. What do you think of the look of Skeletor here? Because obviously it's a CG skull with the red lights in the eyes and all that.
No, I think he looks great. The only thing that threw me a little bit is there's a couple of close-ups, like right at the very end, of showing his hand, like zoomed in, specifically wrapped around a sword. And for some reason, that just triggered something in my mind of, that's like a fake glove. Like, that doesn't look real at all. That just seems like somebody's like rubber glove. But the actual like top-down look of him, of the glowing eyes and all that, I think the glowing eyes are actually a really welcome addition that I haven't seen, which is allowing him to have a gaze, allowing to see what he's looking at.
A bit more menacing. I mean, maybe argue stealing a little bit from Terminator, but that's okay.
Steal from the greats.
So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of your opening, sets things up, and then we're into Earth, we're into Adam landed in the river somewhere, a lake, and then fast forward, and it turns out he's been telling all this, because there was a little bit of narration at the start. It turns out he was telling all this to a first date, who of course immediately abandons him at the date and says, "I have to leave and get away from you."
She looks at her phone like, "I have to take this," and he's like, "It didn't ring." She's like, "No, I have to take this and leave."
Now, my favorite part of this scene, though, is that very prominently, and this is before anything happens, they're just sort of finishing up him talking, I was like, oh, that bottle of Coca-Cola is very prominently placed in the frame. This is some quality product placement. But then he actually takes it and uses it as a prop to describe the power in the sword. He's like, well, the sword's not actually the power. It's just a container, like a glass with the Coke's not the glass isn't the power, but the Coca-Cola, that represents the power that makes us all powerful and godlike.
Look.
Sip.
It was weird. I brushed it off. I just was like, fine, whatever, because there's no way they're going to have Coca-Cola in Eternia.
True.
If they need to get it out of the way here, fine.
Right. It was like the forcing, like, sitting at the table, fine. It makes sense to be sitting on a restaurant table. However, it was when he tried to, like, use it in a metaphor, but the metaphor just felt like, nah, this doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about?
No. Pete, see, I was expecting so much worse, because I agree that the metaphor doesn't make any sense. Whoops. But I was thinking that, like, because I was still getting over War of the Worlds, I was expecting to be like, look, it's like this Amazon package box. The thing inside of it is the power, and then there's the vessel, but you can move it wherever with 2-day free shipping.
Yeah, there is an Amazon truck later on, though.
Which plot relevant Amazon truck box.
Yeah, it's a quick thing. It's not as egregious as the Coke, but it did make me laugh because the War of the Worlds was so heavily Amazon delivery focused.
Yep.
So anyway, that sets up kind of, and there's like a running gag with his roommate. His roommate likes watching chick flicks and crying at them, but he always hides it before he gets home. Which I mean, to be fair, thematically ties into this whole idea of having the idea of what masculinity is supposed to be and accepting other forms of it. So it does fit into the overall theme. But he's like, oh, you didn't tell her all of the story, did you? And so they briefly kind of brush off that he has talked to a therapist, and the therapist has tried to tell him that this is all like a fantasy from his childhood. And he's not buying that, of course. He's got drawings all over his room. He's determined to find the sword and get back to Eternia and all sorts.
And that's the other thing that he's been doing, is just constantly posting on like Craigslist, eBay, literally everywhere. He's like, have you seen this sword? And he just posts his drawings of it saying like, this is the only sword I'm interested in finding.
Yeah, and then he wakes up next day. He's miserable going to work. Whole thing. He works.
They do this beautiful transition musically into Boys Don't Cry, which, like, I think they may play it a bit too long because they just keep looping the intro like da 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 over and over again. But I like this like sad piano version when he's going to sleep, transitioning into the guitar version when he wakes up.
Yeah, but he's in human resources, and I can only describe like his work. Like he's got like, it's almost the I guess people would maybe call it the Office Space trope, which is the boss who's pretending to be like super nice, but it's like a super millennial / Gen Z version of it, where she's saying things like, we
just have to speak our truth. Like, I'm not here to mellow anybody's vibe. We're all here on the same page.
And she's like, hey, can you come in my office in 10 minutes? And he's like, oh, I'm actually in Portsmouth. But like, oh, that's the thing, I wasn't asking. I know it's confusing, the tone, is it this, is it that? But no, I wasn't asking. Like, there's a lot of that kind of like boss speak of her trying to be good at her job, but being very kind of annoying and obnoxious as she's doing it.
Well, the very first sequence here at the HR is he's stuck in some sort of like mental health meeting sort of thing where like a bunch of the people are there and they all have to stand up and say affirmations, and the affirmation has to be like, I have the power to become the person I want to be.
It's a staff like it's not a training, but it's like a staff like meeting where they're doing like, hey, build team building or whatever, and they're saying all this sort of shit, which honestly the thing for me, so since they sort of obviously foreshadowed that I have the power, because he says that during this little thing. I want to make a critique here, because obviously the 1987 movie, like, he never really said it properly in that movie, like his full thing, right? And so the movie's playing out, and I'm like, okay, right, so is it by the power of Grayskull, or is it I have the power? Which one is it? And it gets to the point where he goes to say it, and he says, by the power of Grayskull, I have the power. And I went, well, you just say power twice? You didn't have a thesaurus? You didn't say by the might of Grayskull, I have the power? By the will of Grayskull, I have the power? You just say power twice? That second power feels so cheap and lazy, because you already said power in the first part.
I hear you. I, to an extent, agree. It is written in stone from the original show. You got nothing you can change about that.
The original show was shit then.
Fair enough, but I'm just saying they can't change it. It's by the power of Grayskull, I have the power.
Any other word? By the mood of Grayskull, I have the power. It's not as good as the other ones I said, but it's better than saying power twice.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is supposed to be, it's by the power of Grayskull, and then there's a whole transformation sequence, and then I have the power. So there's a little bit of a gap there. Your mind kind of forgets about it for a second.
There's not much of a gap in this one, though, is there?
No, there isn't. But
okay.
It's how they changed it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to get that out there since we brought up the power.
No,
line.
You're fine.
But yeah, so he gets like messages. Like, she calls him into the office because she's caught him like looking at swords at his computer, and she's like, "Hey, have you thought about your future at this company? Because you've got a lot of potential. People like talking to you. People." And then the phone vibrates on the table, and she's like, "You're going to ignore that, right? You're going to just give me a few minutes here."
Yeah, they visibly see the text says, I found your sword. And he's like,
Yeah, so they do a whole comedy bit here where he's slowly reaching for it. And she's like, I can see your hand. What are you doing? So
I especially appreciate the idea of like, you keep on looking at swords on company time. It's making some people uncomfortable. Daryl over there really has a problem with it. And then they cut to Daryl, who's just like peeking through the window during their meeting. And then he scurries off, and it's, God, I hate Daryl.
So, sure enough, he goes to wherever this guy is who says he's found his sword. Turns out this guy does not own the sword. He simply has alerted him to a comic book / nerd store that has a statue, and that statue is holding this sword as part of a display. And Adam here after some comedy of like not knowing who he's supposed to talk to, where he keeps going up to people saying, "Have you got my sword? Have you got my sword?"
I like the bit. Like, it was a funny scene, but from a character perspective, this guy was like, "You'll know which one is me," and then did nothing to stand out from anybody else in the shop of why he should be the one that's noticed.
No. But yeah, honestly, I could have done with maybe this been trimmed down a little bit. But anyway, he sees the sword. He goes up to it and he starts trying to pull it out. So we get a lot of physical comedy because he can't actually get it out the pry of the statue, and he's kind of, and this is where the first horny stuff really comes in, where people are filming him and he's kind of got his leg over the arm, so it's like he's kind of humping the arm as he's trying to pull the sword out, and it's obviously between his legs. So there's a lot of, right? And the funny thing is they do a whole thing here with the store employee, the woman who's trying to tell him he can't do that, is that when he does get the sword out and he holds it up and says, "I have the power," nothing happens, of course, because it doesn't work that way. It's more like a homing beacon, like people know where he is now, so we get to that in a couple of minutes. But this girl, like, even though he's running out, stealing store property, says, "Are you single?" And I'm like,
yeah,
sure, yeah, okay.
She likes the dangerous type. What about it?
She likes the dangerous type. She saw him wielding that sword between his legs, and she just, her mind went places.
She can fix him, Pete.
Yes. I would point out, though, that if you're trying to, again, keep up this appearance that he is not, like, big, beefy, and, like, you know, like, handsome yet, because that's something the power does to him, then maybe don't have people hitting on him, even though he's doing something very, like, illegal.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude. We skipped over the gym scene.
Oh, okay. We went back to it. Well, yeah. He goes to the gym, which, again, is meant to imply that he's not already beefy, but whatever. He goes to the gym.
He's trying to work out, at least.
Yeah. He's picking up some weights, and out of nowhere, we get our cameo, because everyone was gasping for the cameo from the last movie. Dolph Lundgren is the old man at the gym who gives him some advice. And I'm going to critique this a little bit. It goes on far too long.
I get that.
It goes too long. It goes too meta. All it needed to be was him saying, "Hey, no, those are like too big for you," or whatever, and then walking off. But no, he's like, "Hey, old man, you got any advice for me? Since I'm just starting out." Wink, wink, meta. Did you get it? He's like, "Oh, I don't know what advice I'd give to you, kid, but best of luck." You know, wink.
Yeah, he. I will say he does give some advice that is brought back up later on, which is, you can't get in front of yourself. You got to be behind yourself. And it does come up later when he's trying to give a rousing speech to all the troops. But
I'm just like,
yeah, the sequence goes on way too long. I agree.
Yeah, and I guess it's the really on the nose stuff. We're like, see, we're passing the torch. We're literally like the only way this could be more literal is if he was actually holding a torch and passed it to him during the scene.
I'm pretty sure for a torch, it has to be something that was even mildly regarded well. This is passing of the damp match that was the original.
Don't get me wrong. I'm happy to see Dolph Lundgren. I am. I just, you know, but iffy, but whatever.
I would have been fine if it was just a cameo and he didn't give the advice, or like he gave some purposely like horrible advice, like don't wear pink. Like, it's not manly or something like that. Like, anything. But giving something that actually comes back during the rousing speech made it feel like this scene actually was meant to be longer even, or like more focused on. And they just were like, it's too much. We got to trim it down to its bare essentials. And this is what we were left with.
Yeah, Dolph Lundgren wasn't busy, so he spent 3 days on set cutting monologues, and they had to just trim it all out.
They only needed him for 5 minutes, but he just kept going.
Let me tell you something about playing He-Man, kid. Well, he's not even speaking in character anymore, Jim. What's going on?
You can't say He-Man, Dolph. He hasn't come up with the name yet.
Well, if you're playing a man who is a him, and also perhaps a gentleman, then
yeah. I was fully expecting there to be like a cameo during this sequence, or like just afterwards, of like Courtney Cox or something as well. Of just like really driving it home.
I don't know if Courtney Cox would be willing to come back for a He-Man cameo.
I don't know. What is she doing nowadays?
Scream 8, probably.
Yeah, I think she could spare some time.
So, anyway, yeah, that happens. I do appreciate, though, the police do show up to bring him in for taking the sword out of the store. It's like, hey, there was consequences for this. Mm-hmm. So, that's good. And
they make some for this where the Highlander joke comes in. They make fun of them as they're taking them in to the precinct, but then all of a sudden, Four Non Blondes starts playing on the radio. What's Up starts playing, and we get the result of the homing beacon being sent out back to Eternia.
Yeah, Big Beast Man shows up because they're traffic jammed on the highway, and this like starts wrecking cars up ahead, and the police get out to go get it. Luckily, he was not handcuffed. I guess he went so politely they didn't even put him in cuffs, which, you know.
Yeah. They took his sword and they were like, well, you're not a threat. We're just going to throw you in the back. I do want to say, I know that you were just going based off of appearances, but the character's name is Beastman. So
oh, is he?
You're technically right.
I did not know that. I just said Beastman because it felt descriptive. But
so yeah, there's a bit of a chase scene. There's a running scene, and as he's about to get pinned down and attack, that's where Tila comes in, who also followed the beacon and saves his ass.
She's in her I don't know, warrior gear, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, all right. And she's like, hey, remember me? And like, oh, Tila? And then there's some more running and dodging, and like, she's like, hey, let's just jump off the highway. And he's like, that looks dangerous, but okay. So he lands with a thud, and this is where it gets, the Beastman gets hit with the Amazon truck and whatnot.
Yes.
But ultimately, it's like, hey, okay, you can finally come home now. Let's go back to Eternia. I've got a ship. And we go to the ship, and there's a bunch of strangers just looking at it because there's a ship sitting in this park. That's weird. Which, you know, it's like, this was a little weird to me just because of how easy all this was once like characters showed up. And I get that, like, why should it be any more difficult? But it just didn't feel like that much of like a, I don't know, challenge, I guess.
No, I get what you're saying, but like, I was so opposed to the idea of let's spend as much time in Earth as possible to like save on the budget. I'm so happy we got, because this entire thing, we're maybe at like, what, 30-minute mark, 20-minute mark? Like, we are not deep into this at all.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have that. I appreciate the fact that it's just like, we went to Earth, we grabbed him, and the time skip is the big thing here. It's the idea that he doesn't feel like he's in this world, but he also doesn't know about what's happened in Eternia in the meantime, and people have kind of also forgotten about him or thought that he died.
Yeah, I guess it's just, it's something, there's like a disconnect for me about like, oh, it took 15 years to find the sword, but just how easy it happened and how quickly just that was it. Okay, well, I'm on my way back home now. There was almost like you had no attachments here where you wanted to go and say goodbye to someone because you're probably never coming back, or, you know, there was nothing like that, or I don't know. Yeah. Just everything felt a bit easy.
I mean, he ditches the roommate pretty quickly. We get him back in like a post-credit scene pretty much. But the one thing that I liked about this bit here is that he does, before he gets into the ship, turns to the crowd and says, I told you it was real, and you all doubted me. And then he has to acknowledge, like, not you specifically, but you representing the people that I know who I told who doubted me. And then he gets in the ship and leaves. And I don't know, I thought that was funny.
That was all right. Yeah, it's fine. So yeah, they get in the ship, she flies, and I'll be on it. I guess, are they, like, they mentioned bending time in space. I don't know if that means they're going to another dimension, or it's just transporting them to a different part of space where the planet of Eternia is. Is it, you know, is Eternia a different planet somewhere in the universe, or is it a different universe?
It's a different part of the universe.
Okay.
By my understanding of it. I will say there's some deep ass lore that is not explored in this video or this movie. That is, Adam's mom is actually from Earth, and she was an astronaut who somehow got stranded.
Oh, I didn't get that part, but there was one line about, because I think he says at one point, oh, my mum's from here or something like that, or there was one little line that hinted that the mum was actually a human, and I'm like, oh, it's like an Aquaman style thing where well, in that case it was the mum was the Atlantis and the dad was the human, but you know,
right,
flip it around.
No, but that's some deep lore stuff there, so that's to say at least you can get there via space, but it's different, you know.
Yeah, obviously much quicker to use portals.
Yeah, absolutely.
much quicker.
As long as we don't have a weird little creature tapping on a little keyboard synth thing for God knows how long.
I was waiting for the little ginger dude to show up.
Oh God, I'm so happy he wasn't. I would have docked a point immediately.
I was waiting for him. I was like, where's the little guy?
Nope, screw him.
Okay, well, they get to Eternia. It's basically post-apocalyptic and dystopia because Skeletor's in charge now, and all the good people are like a rebel force now, hiding in bases and things like that, hiding where they can't be found. So, you know, she flies them to like her secret base where all our people are, and Deadshot sees them going in there, so he reports to Skeletor. So the Skeletor's forces are on their way, so we're eventually going to have a big scene, but we get some time for him to meet people and do some exposition and whatnot.
I appreciate Deadshot. Triclops. Technically, he has, the toy at least, has 2 other single dots that can like rotate on a ring that do different things. So he's Triclops.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you the names of the characters. I don't know what you want from me.
All right. Okay. I was just thinking Deadshot the entire time as I was watching the movie.
I mean, you're right. It's pretty much spot on, but it's what technically he is. I do remember, because later on in the fight scene, he does have lasers that come out of his eyes. But I think for a lot of this, he's just firing with like a sniper rifle.
Yeah, he's not really using a sniper rifle, so I was thinking Deadshot, and then eventually he does fire like a heat vision style. And I don't know if it's, I mean, I'm sure it's the tech rather than his body that's doing it, but yeah, he fires something out of his eye. Well, I say eye, out of his red visor thing that he's got on his mask.
The Cyclops thing.
So, yeah, here's where we meet the others. We meet Fisto and whatnot, and he brings up... This is where we start getting the kind of, I gave you all names because I was a kid and didn't know what your actual names were, so I drew all you, and I called you Fisto because you fist things. And he's like, I didn't do that. It's like, I saw you fist this thing once. And he's like, I did not. And so there's that joke. They also get the Sorduses after they throw him in the prison cell for a bit, where Fisto's holding the sword, and I think it's Dion who says, oh, that sword's a lot smaller than I thought it'd be. And he's like, because my hand's big. It looks small because my hand's so big. And I'm like, this is a penis joke, everyone. Everyone, wake the neighbors. They're talking about dicks.
I mean, the continuation of the joke is, but wait, that's your normal hand. Your other hand's a big hand. And he's like, well, both my hands are big.
Yes. It was okay. Honestly, it was okay, but it just kind of felt like, okay, how much horny humor are we doing here? I'm bracing myself for what level of,
Look, it depends on your definition of horny humor, but I gotta say, for like, this movie keeps on finding new peaks until there's a bit right after the midpoint where Tila is like saying something about the loincloth or whatever, and it stays at that level. That's the horniest it gets. And then Skeletor right at the end just jumps it up to the top of the charts of like, we could not possibly get more horny.
Yep. It turns out Master at Arms, Idris Elba, is now a drunk. He's in the prison cell. He's actually lying there for a while before they reveal who it is, and that's kind of like the joke almost. Also, Roboto's in there, who used to be a war robot, but has been reprogrammed into a cleaning robot, because apparently she almost killed Idris Elba once, and he reprogrammed her. But that'll play out a bit more later when he twitches her back. That's a whole thing. Ultimately,
To be clear, Master at Arms is a drunk because he failed. Like, he had never lost battles beforehand, so now he has this crisis of self of who is he and how is he supposed to continue living.
To an extent, however, when he does find his outfit, because like Tila's got it in like a box labeled dad stuff on her ship, he does have hidden compartments in his old war outfit for booze, which suggests that either he was still active as Master at Arms for a while whilst he was becoming a drunk, or he always maybe had a little bit of a problem that just got worse after the whole failure thing.
Fair, but I mean, at least when we meet him here, it's an issue of he doesn't want to even leave the cell. Like, as it's being attacked, he's like, nah, that's old me. I'm not doing that anymore.
No, so Skeletor's forces start attacking, explosions, boom booms, running, chasing. The robot breaks them out by running through the wall. It's a whole thing. And it's actually, I mean, I wasn't sure if we were going to wait until the third act to do the whole he gets the power thing, but no, he does it here, where he kind of, has to kind of whip up the courage because Trapjaw's there. There's a bit of a walkway to get to the ship, so he has a whole standoff kind of moment.
It is a recurring motif in this, and I think this might be the first part, but Adam essentially just tries to HR his way through these fights.
Yes.
Like every single time he starts up, he's just like, look, I believe there's good in everyone. Like we should be able to talk through our differences. So he's walking up to Trapjaw and just being like, hey man, what can we do? Let's start a dialogue. What can we do here so that we both end up winning? Like, how do we get out of this? And Trapjaw's like, I'm going to kill you. And he just actively tries to murder him.
Yes, and there's some ducking and diving and whatnot, but ultimately he does use the sword. He holds it up, he says the words, the clouds start to swirl, lightning strikes down, and we get like this, it takes a long time this first time where you get the slow motion of all the muscles popping out, and then the clothes appear around him. And it's funny because they actually do bring up afterwards, after the fight, obviously, where he like takes care of Trapjaw. Doesn't kill him, but he takes care of him. He does say, wait, will I get my regular clothes back, or are they gone now? And later in the movie, it kind of just answers it offhand by having him in his clothes again. It's like, oh, I guess they just came back magically when the power wore off.
Yeah, it's magic. Why not? Whatever.
But which also begs the question is, when did the power wear off? Because once he transforms into He-Man here, he's in this form for a long time. Like, how long does he have to be separated from the sword before he transitions back into regular Adam?
I don't think it's a separated from the sword thing, because he was also like knocked out. He was actually like knocked unconscious. So maybe that's the level, but I think it's, in terms of the show and the original toy lines, as long as it needs to be.
Fair enough. So they're equally impressed by Adam doing this and, wielding the power, being the champion of Eternia, but also he is very sloppy even as He-Man. It's not like he suddenly has great fighting skills. He's kind of bumbling a little bit, getting lucky here or there. The fact that he can sort of withstand the blast with these gauntlets, kind of Wonder Woman styles, a big help. But yeah, I mean, this all kind of leads to a big chase sequence where they're in the ship and they're getting chased by other villain ships, and he jumps out and takes over one of their ships and all the rest of it, and there's a lot of jumping around and whatnot.
This sequence was where I felt the pacing start to falter. Like, we had that whole fight scene on the bridge, and it felt big, it felt epic, it felt good. The chase sequence felt like it was it wasn't too long per se, but it wasn't doing enough to justify its length for me. Like, we weren't like having enough geographical of knowing where all these different people are, and like how the fight's continuing. And then as soon as we get out of this chase sequence, it just stops, dead stop, and we have to have like 17 talks before we can continue on with the rest of the movie.
Yeah, because he gets into the back of the ship, and it's a little sort of like hover speeder bike thing that he's going to use to like drive around, and then he jumps to the other villain ships and whatnot. And it's perfectly fine for what it is, and like the villain ships at least have some unique. Like, it's like one of them is like, it's like two razor circles that kind of like tilt and stuff, and that's kind of like an interesting visual at least. But ultimately they get damaged and they survive, but like everyone crash lands in the forest, and like it's so weird though, because he crash lands separately from them and has like a big sort of fall, like getting hit off a bunch of things, and it's like, okay. But Tila lands with the others, and she's like, okay, I'm going to go find her. And by the way, by this point, the Green Tiger's with them. Like, that team up with them at the no, that's later, actually.
No,
later.
Yeah, that's after,
later.
That's in the cell.
I'm thinking
it's Roboto.
I'm thinking of the robot. I'm thinking of the robot, yeah. Which, by the way, they put the Green Tiger in the MGM logo at the start, and I was like, what the hell's with this Green Tiger? Because I don't remember a Green Tiger in the last movie.
Look, Canon did not have the money for a Green Tiger, let's be clear.
But I thought it was weird though, because she's like, oh, I'm going to go find Adam before it gets dark, and I thought there'd be like, oh, well, she's looking for him, there'll be a little bit of danger or something, but no, she just finds him. There's nothing to it. She just finds him.
No, the only thing that happens in between is that there's a bird that lands on the sword, and he believes it's the sorceress. He believes it's the sorceress saying like, oh, Adam, you must continue on this path, do whatever you got to do. And then as she approaches, it flies away, and it's just keeping the story moving. It's just saying like, you can't stop now. I'm guiding you to your next goalpost.
Yeah. And he believes that, and she's like, I was a bird, let's just go and camp. So there's a whole like camping section, and there's like some bonding over like, oh, Master Arms, you taught me lots of smart things, you can be great again, blah blah blah. Tila is mad at her dad for turning to the bottle once again. Clearly there's some rough relationship stuff there, which they kind of get into. I guess I kind of appreciate that she clearly still respects who he was. It's not like he's suddenly just a villain in her life, even though she's obviously disappointed and thinks that he's useless now. There's kind of this, like, I don't know, it's a little bit more nuanced than I think most movies of this type would treat the whole, you know, parent who's a drunk and kid kind of relationship.
Yeah, no, it's especially because of the opening of the movie, where it's this thing of how much faith she puts in him. It's this idea of, like, it's not completely dead. It's not something that has completely lost its luster. She wants him to be able to get back, but she just doesn't trust him to be able to at this point, and it slowly has to be gained over time.
Yeah, but
the other part of these
I was going to say she's still kind of like trying to emulate who he was, though. Like, that's effectively what she's trying to be, is who he was in her childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also the other part of the conversation here where we basically get the delineation of Adam has been raised and, like, it believes in the idea of talking things out and being able to do that stuff. How does that square with the whole giant sword and punching thing? And that's where Man at Arms is basically like, you're not fighting for the sake of fighting. You're fighting to protect the people that you care about. And that's when it's okay. Like, you got to be willing to do it under those circumstances. And he kind of accepts that.
Yeah, there's also the loincloth bit here where they're getting stuff out the ship, and, like, she's kneeling down and she's right in front of his crotch and makes a comment about it. And
that's
what's
the
weird
horny level
is, like, he's clearly attracted to her, and they're getting close here, almost at kissing level as they're talking, and then she kind of pulls the, yeah, we're great friends and we'll always be friends, and, you know, kind of like circumvents it. And it really felt like, oh, this is the kind of the red herring right now, so that later on she'll admit that she actually does feel something or whatever. And then that moment never comes later. I'm like, oh, are they just straight up saying this is definitely friend zoning now permanently? Because it felt more like when a movie does that because they're in denial of their feelings or whatever, and then it comes back round later.
Honestly, I'm down with that only because Tila is such a strong and independent character. I don't want it to be something that's reduced back to, she's the love interest character.
It's not something I'm desiring because, like, I think it would be better. It's more just like I was just surprised it didn't, because it felt like it was going down that. Because even when they're kids, it's like, oh, this is clearly the girl he's got a crush on because she sticks up for him. They have a friendship already. You know, it was kind of natural to have it there.
Well, I mean, that's at the end of the movie when, after everything's said and done, she's like, oh, hey, you know, you gave nicknames to all these other people. What about me? What was my nickname? And he's like, look, I was a kid. You got to understand that. You were warrior goddess. And she's like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, I guess if they do somehow decide to make a sequel of some kind, I can still totally see them going down the path of making them romantic interests, but I mean,
I could also see it as kind of like a early days Lois Superman sort of thing, where it's like she is into He-Man, but she still sees Adam as like a brother, and having those two characters, like the idea of like the power being the difference there.
Yeah, which would still, in theory, eventually lead to a romance, but
who knows?
I don't know. But regardless, basically, Skeletor does like a call out, which this was kind of in the 1987 movie, right at the start of that movie, where he like does like an announcement to the world, and he just appears in like the Northern Lights, effectively. There's a big face in the sky, being like, "Aha! Bring me, that sword, you peasants," or whatever he says.
I saw you driving away with my sword. I want it back, and here's the kicker: your parents are still alive. I'll let you see them if you bring me the sword.
Yeah, that's the main thing he gets to, is that the parents are still alive, and this is also like, this is the part of the plot that was frustrating to me, is that Adam says, "Okay, I need to go and get to them," and the others are all like, "It's a trap, right?" He's like, "Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I have to see them." And they're like, "Okay." And even Tila, who was the one that seemed to be the most against them doing it, is like, "You know what? I'm with you all the way." And I'm like, "Okay, I don't know if I felt like you were still with them, but fair enough. You're saying it. Let's go do it." Then they just walk up to Skeletor's front door, knock on it, and then immediately like get defeated and put in jail cells. And I'm like, was there not a plan to get somehow to get in without maybe getting beaten and arrested immediately?
I think what was missing here is to show an absolute undying faith that the He-Man power would be enough. I think that's kind of like it's a little implied, but I think what they needed here was to have that sort of thing of nothing can stop you. You've got the power of Grayskull and Eternia and all that. You are the one who's destined to beat Skeletor, so like you'll obviously win no matter what. And that allows for this level of confidence to literally just walk up to the front door and say, yeah, let me see Skeletor. I'm gonna go kick his ass.
Yeah, and of course, you know, they get beat quite quickly, and he gets kind of, does he get knocked out first, or does he go up to see Skeletor and does the whole thing with his dad first? I can't remember if he gets knocked out first.
He's just walked in and then he has the whole thing with Skeletor.
Yeah, because he's got his dad there, the old king who's like old and kind of confused, and he's like, "Oh, my son Adam," and you know, we get a bit of a fight where ultimately, you know, Adam does not win. He loses here. There is a
decent fight scene. Like, it goes on for a while.
It's okay, yeah. I had no problems with the fight scene. What I did have a bit of a little nitpick with is that at the end of the fight scene, Adam basically kills his dad inadvertently because he fires like a blast of his power up to the ceiling, and it, you know, all this rubble comes down, and the only person that hits is his dad, and he goes over to his dad, not holding the sword, and has like what felt like an eternity of like the dying words, you know, "I'm proud of you, son. I never wanted you to be anything other than yourself." That whole speech, right? To round out the whole, "I'm not ashamed of you. I was never ashamed of you. I didn't want you to be me. I wanted you to be you, blah, blah, blah." And all I could think after about 10 seconds was Skeletor just standing there watching this entire speech. And he is. Like, he lets the entire thing play out. The old man finally croaks, and then Skeletor knocks out Adam. It's like,
look, Skeletor's never going to get in the way of dramatic last words. He's absolutely a theater kid at heart.
I was half expected to turn to Skeletor looking bored, like halfway through this death scene.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if like there is a cut where that happened. No, but this is absolutely the pacing issue still coming in, because like that scene where they're all just like kind of talking after the ship crashed and they're trying to figure out what to do next, very slow. And then Skeletor says, "Hey, I got your parents," and it zooms of just like, oh, now we're at Skeletor's lair and we're going to fight against him. The fight scene, I think that's well paced. I think we're back to a good medium there. But then the moment that it's like, well, you beat my guys, but I still got your dad, and then the dad ends up dying, it just, once again, slow. It shouldn't be taking this long for these final words. It shouldn't be stopping as much as it is. And then Skeletor just walks up, whaps him on the head, and it's like, well, that's the end of that. And I'm like, the pacing is just all over the place here, and I can't get a lock on it.
Yeah, it should have felt like it was harder to get to Skeletor's castle, maybe to give it some build up. Is like, oh, we're actually feeling like we might have a chance here, but because it just immediately goes there, it's like, well, of course you don't have a chance. I've not accepted that you've built up enough skill yet to possibly do this. We're too early in the movie.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Skeletor wanted him to show up, so like obviously it should be easy to get there, but there needs to be some resistance from something, and I think the obvious thing is have Teela be like resistant, have her holding back, have her maybe like split off from the group or something, and that would obviously change the whole back end of the plot, but it would be something that would allow for a little bit of, oh well, this isn't going to go well.
Yeah, or at least just discuss like what we're going to do when we get there, so that when you just knock on the door, I'm not going, wait, really, this is it? You're just knocking on the door? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, because they're in the jail cell with everyone else, turns out his mum's in there, so they have a hearty reunion, and then this is where he basically gives the HR speech of like, oh, we can all do this together, and you're Fisto because you fist things, and he's like, hell yeah, I do, and you're Ram Man because you ram things, like, yes, I do, I ram things, and you're Mechaneck because you Nick, I don't even remember what he says about Mechanic, but something like that.
Yeah, no, pretty much. I mean, that's all it is. And no, he does. I don't even think he points out Mechanic. He points out Dana or whatever her name was, and is like, and you shoved me in the lockers a lot when we were kids, and I'm not quite over that. And she's like, yeah, I did.
Yes. If anything, you're underselling how proud she was when she said, yeah, I did.
Oh, yeah. No, she loves that. Yeah, she's happy to be a bully. And this is also where finally Cringer shows up, the cat. Green tiger cat.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, all right, we're all together. Let's all do a hurrah. We'll all save the day.
We've got to escape from this cell. And they're like, but the bars are made of unobtainium. We can't possibly break our way through that. And Adam points out, yeah, but like the cave is made of rock. We can break rock.
Yes, especially since the robot goes back into weapons mode, so fires some cannons at the rock and we'll push the bars. Yeah. And that's just how they get out. And Again, we do very quickly barrel into the big third act, like action, which is made up of multiple parts. At first, it's all the side characters coming in and fighting the armies of bad guys, and that's where Dion gets her badass moments with the two pistols, and you see Ram Man and Fisto and Mechanic all doing stuff.
I will say, just rewinding slightly here to when they break out of the cell, this is the worst point, I think, of undercutting a moment with the self-referential humor, which is it's the Princes of the Universe. The song starts playing. It's
walking in slow motion.
Walking in slow motion through the cloud of smoke, and then they start coughing on the smoke because it's all stone rubble and whatever, and it undercuts the coolness of the moment. I'm like, nah, you just let that one sit. You don't need to undercut that.
No, I agree. That's very much. It was actually, Superman last year. I had that one joke I didn't like with the garage door taking ages to open. It's very much like, hey, we're gearing up. Let's go get the ship. Yep. It was the same kind of moment of like, oh, you're just pausing this for a joke, when I actually would have preferred just to feel the badassness of the moment as opposed to you poking fun at it. But hey, it is what it is. But yeah, so basically Idris Elba and the robot basically do a standoff on the bridge against whatever's still coming to the castle.
Yeah, they have a huge army approaching them. They're the only ones that are standing between that and Castle Grayskull, so they use the robot's missiles to shoot down.
Just to clarify this, so they were trapped in Skeletor's castle, and Skeletor, because the sword's not working for him, he gets mad at Evelyn, and Evelyn's like, well, we could do it again, or maybe actually if we go to Grayskull and we do it where the sword lives, that might work.
I believe it needs to be recharged at Grayskull. It is in by the power of Grayskull. So,
which made me think, so it's kind of like a Thor thing where he's not chosen, he's not a worthy one, so it's not going to work.
There is literally a point when he's talking to Sorceress later that he says something along the lines of like, the sword, well, if you are so worthy. I'm like, that's Mjolnir, dude. The sword doesn't have any of that.
Well, I was starting to think it did, though, just because of the way it plays out, and like it doesn't seem to work for anyone but Adam, seemingly. Yeah,
it's slightly different, but only on a technicality.
So they're all racing to Grayskull. Big war fight takes place. Adam and Tila go inside with a tiger to find Skeletor and that, and then the outside, like you say, you've got the robot actually, like, quote, it doesn't die, but gets blown up, gets like mostly destroyed, but it can be fixed.
Trapjaw comes in on a flying ship so we can get the redemption moment for Man-at-Arms.
Yeah, he jumps up out of the ship and he plants an explosive on him basically and jumps back out.
On him is very strong words for yanking his jaw down, shoving a grenade inside and closing it back up.
Yeah, he jumps off the ship and it goes boom and it's a whole big thing. And it's like, okay, so he got his big moment. All the sea characters got their big moment fighting the army. All that's left. And I will say there's maybe a little pacing issue here of like you see like He-Man and Tila go into like the castle and they're all basically almost at Skeletor. And then it has to do all this other stuff with like Idris Elba for like 5-10 minutes. So it feels like, oh man, they're taking ages getting to Skeletor. How long's this castle trip taking?
It's a problem with the pacing up until we get there, but I am happy that we don't keep on cutting away from the Skeletor fight to do the other people's stuff. Like, I'm happy that once we start here, it's like, all right, we're just locked in until the end. We're just going to stay here.
Yeah. It's basically just dive over Skeletor, grab the sword, and power back up is basically the plan.
And then Skeletor, Evelyn's fighting against Tila, and then there's
which makes sense.
One other person who's fighting against Beastman. Beastman's fighting against Cringer.
Yeah. So the Tiger's fighting the Beastman, and it makes sense that you've got our female lead fighting the female villain. So like they're squaring off.
And I also appreciate Evelyn once again doing her Starscream thing of like, we can both just bail. Like the men can fight this out. We don't even have to be here. And Tila's just like, nope. I'm gonna fight you.
Yeah, she also does just bail as soon as she realizes that Skeletor might lose. She's like, you know what? I'm just gonna dip. I'm just gonna dip out.
Yeah. It's the Starscream. That's exactly what has to happen so that we can get our post-credit stinger. But no, then the Skeletor's just like, no, screw you. This is supposed to be my power, and he zaps He-Man. He-Man blocks it with the sword, but the magic is so strong that it shatters the sword of power, and that's it. He's I think he reverts back to Adam, correct?
I don't remember actually. I don't remember if his outfit changes.
I can picture the pink shirt with like the sword in it.
I don't think he's became He-Man yet. I think he's grabbed the sword, but I don't think
right.
I think he's just not turned into He-Man. I don't think he turns into He-Man again until he does the whole like, no, the magic's in me and the sword's going to reform, and then he turns into He-Man. Which takes place after we get a bunch of like Skeletors in his mind, like planning stuff.
God.
We get Skeletor at his workplace doing like shitty boss stuff. That's where he talks about the sword between his legs. That's when we get that line.
He's literally just Office Space. Like he's literally just the character from Office Space. He walks in, he's drinking the coffee. He's like, yeah,
but with a skeleton head, and also the gym version where he's in the hoodie with the skeleton version.
I was mentioning before. Whenever they do the self-referential humor, I'm like, hit or miss. But when they're getting weird with it, when it's just strange things happening, that's where it peaked for me. And the back-to-back of Jim Bro Skeletor and Office Space Skeletor, I popped. I was like, this is what I wanted. This is the level of weirdness that's making it work for me.
Yep. But ultimately he sees the sorceress in his head, like in his like room, his bedroom and all the images, and she's like, oh no, the power's in you. Why'd you think I picked you? I put it in you.
To be clear, the whole reason Skeletor was in those moments is that it's moments where he failed, moments that he felt is his lowest. And Skeletor was trying to point out, like, you suck. You're not going to be able to do anything against me.
Yeah. So, it's... you know what's so frustrating about this movie is that I was constantly kind of at odds of like, oh, this bit's kind of fun, the music's kind of good, it's been very earnest, but then it's doing the self-referential bits, or the action's just okay, like it's just doing kind of, or there's a pacing issue. It was constantly kind of like clashing, because I've had like a nitpick of like lots of bits in the movie, even though I generally think it's fairly pleasant to watch. It's not irritating in like a lot of movies of this size. So
no, I agree. This is, but by the time it got into this section, I think it stays pretty constant throughout. I think by the time we coast to the end, it's still like, okay, now this feels pretty straightforward the whole rest of the way up until the end.
Yeah, I think I felt myself wishing that I cared a little bit more about just like the outcome. Like I think at this point I'm like, okay, I get it, obviously who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, but I don't necessarily feel that weight of I care about the outcome of the third act. Whether that's like, caring about Eternia being put back together because people are hiding in caves or and stuff, and like, from this like dictator who's got a skeleton for a face and all that. Yeah. Because that's part of Skeletor's thing here, is that when he tries to talk to Skeletor and like HR him, basically, he's like, I have a skull for a face. I'm a villain. That's all I am.
Yeah. He's literally like, look, I don't know why you do the evil things you do. Maybe mommy didn't hug you enough or whatever, but like, we can work this out. We can come to things. And he's like, there's no good in me. Look at me. Like, I'm happy with the fact that I'm a villain. I feel good being a villain. So screw you. And then he starts fighting, and He-Man's like, oh, well, Skeletor calls out to just be like, see, you're weak. You're not willing to do what you have to do. You're not willing to wield this power to its fullest extent. And He-Man's eyes start to glow, and he's like, oh no, I can. I just don't like to. And then he just starts beating the shit out of Skeletor.
Yep. To the point where we just get the skull on its own after he's beat him, just sort of sitting there. So it's effectively been decapitated, although they don't necessarily show you, like that.
His rod of power, his staff thing, explodes with energy from He-Man, and then he's just dead.
Yeah, and that's it. That's him. He's because there was a quick scene earlier on where Evelyn's like, hey, like, you're already pretty powerful. You've got an army who like follows your every word, and you're in charge. Like, do you really need any more power? And he's like, aha, but this can all be taken away. This is all temporary until I have that power. And I guess you could just read it as anyone who's powerful always wants more power. They always want to be even more kind of like untouchable, but
yeah, I mean, it's even more simplistic of that, of like, this is the kryptonite. This is the thing that he knows, like, if someone, like, this wild card that's floating out there that I don't know where it is has the ability to take me down, I want to know where it is, and more importantly, I want it to be under my control.
Yeah. So, victory, a couple of weeks advance, and we see that they've rebuilt everything, and Queen's there, she's all happy. robot's been rebuilt. The roommate's been brought in to just, hey, see, look how real all this is.
It's literally just, I really want someone from back home to know that I'm not crazy. Here, take a look.
He's got like informal attire for this realm now. He's not just in Earth clothes when he's not being He-Man, so that's the thing. But
like before he was wearing a pink button up, and now it's just like a pink vest. Like it still visually is very matching.
But he talks about this is where the names come up, and he's like, oh, you give all these names to people and blah blah blah. What did you name me? Oh, warrior, goddess. Like, don't read into it. And it's basically just like, oh, there's a call for aid. Someone needs He-Man's help out in the realm.
To jump in the middle of that, they're like, oh, did you give yourself a name?
Oh, that's right.
And
of course,
like, I was like, yeah, but like, again, I was 9. Can we please not? And he's like, no, what was it? Like, He-Man. And they're like, that's, you may as well have called yourself Man. Like, what we're trying to be super buff here? He's like, yeah, it's masculine. It's cool.
Obviously, this is better, but I couldn't help but think of the end of Fantastic Four, where Miles Teller turns his head and goes, say that again? Like, I couldn't help but think of that moment here.
Dude, if I was waiting for the moment of like, but what did you call yourself? Credits. And I'm like, God damn it. But no, luckily they stuck with it. Although they do the weird thing from the cartoon, which is in the cartoon, I don't think anyone knows, or at least very few people know, that Adam is He-Man. It is supposed to be like a Superman thing of a secret transformation. So at the end, when they say like, oh, there's a call for help, someone needs He-Man's help, Adam's like, oh, well, I'm just gonna be over there. And he calls Cringer with him, and everyone's like, he knows that we know, right? Like, we didn't forget about the entirety of this movie. We are aware that he turns into He-Man, and they're like, just let him have his thing, whatever.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. I mean, maybe you could argue it's because he has grown up somewhat on Earth watching superheroes. He is really committed to the bit. He's like, oh, I need to have a secret identity. But like, yeah, that came out of nowhere for me, that joke at the end.
I mean, technically, Man-at-Arms, Teela, and I guess the Sorcerers are the only people who like actually have seen him transform.
Yeah, but he looks the exact same. Are you telling me that?
Yeah, of course he does.
Are you telling me that Fisto and Dion and all those characters like are looking at He-Man going, where did this guy come from?
In the show, yes. In the movie, it's obvious that they're not, and so they're just hanging a lampshade on it. They're just saying like, yeah, of course we know, but we're going to let him do his thing.
Not only does he look the same, he's the one who showed up with a sword in the first place. So like,
hey, I agree with you. I think the movie's just kind of aware of like, look, if we got to reference how the show works, we're going to say that's how it works.
So it has such a weird pull at the end. Anyway, so the movie ends with him he's riding on the back of the tiger, and I'll be honest, this did look a bit rough. This like riding on the back of the tiger from a CG and like green screen perspective, it just looked really wonky. And there's actually a scene immediately which because they did the title before this stuff, and then there's some credits, right? You get the titles, right? All the fancy things. I think
you literally just get directed by Travis Knight, and then it goes into the next scene.
But the mid-credit scene is back to Idris Elba and the Queen, and they're having a chat, and she's like, oh, I'd given up hope, and he's like, don't worry, like, see, he's back, your son's back, that's great. And then she's like, I'd given up hope in both of them, and he's like, don't worry, he came back, maybe one day she will too. And I'm like, what, Leia? Who are we talking about?
Pretty much.
And it cut to like a dark world. It's really industrial looking, like dark magic and all that. And it's like a woman from behind. And I kind of went, oh wait, I think I've heard of She-Ra. Is this She-Ra?
Yep. It's the She-Ra.
I guess this is She-Ra. Is she He-Man's sister or cousin or something?
Yep. Twin sister. Separated at birth.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, separated at birth. Okay, I was going to say, how was she not in that opening part when he was 10?
Yeah. Honestly, I think, like, based off of how absolutely brutal the king is towards Adam, of, like, you got to be strong and all tough and stuff like that, I feel like that might be some forward-thinking characterization of, like, yeah, he lost his daughter at, like, because he wasn't strong enough to save her or whatever, and then she was stuck off wherever else. So maybe that is some extra characterization there, but She-Ra will return in Avengers Doomsday.
Notably, you'll see her from behind because I assume they've not cast her yet, so you just get the back of the head and whatever her sword looks like with a crystal in it. The funny thing is again, like, this is fine, but obviously so many movies have tried to start like franchises or cinematic universes or whatever, and this is less a universe and more just like a spin-off, so there'd be two things going side by side. But I couldn't help but think of that last Transformers movie that had like a G.I. Joe tease at the very end, and I was like, yeah, that went nowhere because that movie didn't do well enough. And I'm looking at this going, some people probably would like a She-Ra movie, but I don't know if you're going to get it based on the way this is performing.
I think, well, I mean, based off the way it's performing, yeah, no, absolutely. I think if they wanted to, they could make it a thing if they just pimped it out as Masters of the Universe 2. Like, I don't think making a She-Ra brand would work. Well, actually, trying to make its own thing.
I actually think I disagree with this.
No?
I think it's more likely because this underperformed to try and distance it a little bit by just calling it She-Ra. And yeah, obviously I'm not saying they're going to ignore that there's a connection. Like, I'm sure it'll still be in the movie, but I don't think they'll market it as that. They'll just market it as, hey, cool new thing called She-Ra for people to enjoy.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, let's be upfront. Whatever they name it, odds are it's going to come to Amazon Prime and not be in theaters.
It depends on the budget. If they spend X number of millions on it, they're going to put it in theaters no matter what.
Oh, well, yeah, but I'm saying they're not going to put that much money on it.
I mean, I don't know. They could not. I mean, admittedly, I don't know how well this would have done anyway. But the idea that this came out and two indie horror movies were absolutely killing it at the box office, as well as, I guess, Scary Movie 6 doing well on the same day, it's like, well, like, there was so much competition. Because this didn't even launch at number 2. This launched at number 3, and it only just beat Obsession, which was on its, like, 4th weekend. So, which is good for the box office. The box office is very healthy this past couple of months. It's been a lot of money being made. But this was the one that got caught on the tide of it.
I mean, that's the sort of thing. They're going to rearrange stuff. They're going to push stuff around. Obviously, like, they tried to beat out Spielberg's film, which we'll be doing next week. Like, they're doing whatever they can to try to have their own little section. But there's no way when they put that date on, they're going to be like, little indie horror film is going to be up against our big tentpole sword and sandal film. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, and then after Disclosure Day, you've got Supergirl and you've got Toy Story 5 all kind of waiting in the wings. And Toy Story 5... And Toy Story 5 is going to be, like, the estimates for that are through the roof. That's going to be a juggernaut, which
is insane to me because, like, everyone and their mother that I remember hearing is like, Toy Story 4 didn't need to exist. And the fact that Toy Story 5 is like, yeah, no, just keep going.
It's the new children. Everyone who grew up with the originals doesn't need a 5th one, but the new children are like, hey, I watched those first 3 or 4 on Disney Plus. I would like to see a new one in theaters.
I mean, yeah, possible. I'm curious because I've seen the plot of that movie is basically the main girl gets an iPad. So I'm wondering if it's going to be a thing of like, yeah, like the iPad can still exist, parents. Let's not just throw the iPad out. Let's let them continue to watch Disney Plus at their leisure, but like also maybe toys.
Yeah. So hey, it's almost like a little cynical where you like if the end of the movie's like, hey, there's still a room for toys in your child's heart. Buy our merchandise.
Specifically Disney branded toys. Toy Story 5 now available at Walmart.
Yes, get your Buzzies, get your Woodies. Also, if your mum wants some toys, you can go to the sex shop and also get a toy named Buzz and a toy named Woody for her too.
Top tier.
Thank you.
Need to bring up 2 things. One, there are 2 other post-credit scenes. One of them is Orlo, the magician weirdo looking thing that comes out and says, today we learned that He-Man doesn't need to use power or whatever, and skeleton faces are probably evil.
I did see that, yes.
Yes.
I have nothing to add. I didn't even know what his character's name was, but fair enough.
His name is Orlo, and the whole reason that's there is because back in the day on these cartoon shows, they always would end the episode with a moral that was learned from that day's episode. So it's just a little toss back to that.
Did not get that reference, but okay.
Fair enough. And then the very, very, very end of the movie, post all the credits, is Evil Lynn showing back up, grabbing Skeletor's head and saying, "You've looked better." And then Skeletor's laugh. Technically, the Joker from Suicide Squad's laugh starts playing out.
Skeletor will return. And
Avengers Doomsday. Yeah.
Yes, Doomsday of the universe. There you go. We'll cross everything over.
So that's the first thing, is that there's just some more post-credit scenes. But the other thing that I need to bring up, because I was genuinely shocked by it is just before the sequence where Adam, Tila, and Cringer go in to fight Skeletor. Cringer's going, I don't know about this. Shouldn't I have some armor or something like that? And Tila looks down at Cringer and says, pussy. And I'm like, what just happened? What in the hell just happened in this movie?
Really? You're that shocked by that?
I am. Look, for Masters of the Universe, yes, I did not expect for them to just outwardly just say, yeah, you pussy.
No, they get away with it because he's a cat. That's why they get away with this.
I get how they get away with it. I'm surprised they tried to get away with it to begin with. The fact that it worked is all the more surprising.
Well, after the other innuendos, you're surprised they tried to get away with something? Nah.
Because look, the innuendos at least have like the ha-ha, wink, like we nudge to the parents of like, yes, your massive sword dangling between your thighs. Like, the kids are not necessarily going to get that. The adults will, fine. But just saying pussy like that, that's an easily imitatable kid behavior, and I'm not sure that that's going to fly.
Well, it did. They put it in. Here it is.
I know. I'm baffled by it. I needed to bring it up because I don't get it.
Look, again, the people... What's so funny to me is that the target audience for this is people who are in their mid-40s and up because of when the cartoon existed. But it's funny to me that most of the people in this movie are younger than I am, so they're even more removed from this like Camila Mendes and Nicholas Galitzine, or whatever his name is. Like,
sure.
You think they watched He-Man growing up? No, they did not.
No chance. But maybe their parents did, and that's all that matters.
Because it didn't stick around. Because while there was definitely the initial era of the Ninja Turtles cartoon, Ninja Turtles never went away. There was always a version of Ninja Turtles pretty much every single time since that era. Always.
Yeah. Look, I do want to point out, yes, you are correct with that with the Ninja Turtles, but that is almost technically true when it comes to He-Man as well. There's a period in the 90s where there isn't a lot, but once we hit the 2000s, there's always a comic running, there's multiple cartoons, there was a Netflix, like 3 specials or something like that came out on Netflix semi-recently. So there has been a He-Man presence for the past 25 years at this point.
I mean, I'll take your word for it, but the fact that I didn't know any of this stuff existed, at least in my circles, feels like, it's not as ever present as some of these other things.
No, it's definitely not as ever present. Like, don't get me wrong, Turtles is always going to be significantly more than that. It's always something bigger.
And Transformers,
I think, disappeared.
I think Transformers, I think it's fair to say, is also more ever present than He-Man ever has been.
I feel like, and this is just based off my own vibes, I feel like Transformers, before the Michael Bay film was like announced, in the 5 to 10 years before that, it was probably on the same level as He-Man in terms of forgettability of back in the day. But once the movies came out, it's now lodged itself in common culture.
Yeah, because to me, He-Man and G.I. Joe kind of go hand in hand as the two things that... now, apparently He-Man was a thing in the UK just before I was born, so I just wasn't around for it. I don't think G.I. Joe played in a non-American audience at all.
Why would it? It's all about American Djangoism of like, let's go in and punch people for America.
And I was actually thinking about this. Like, honestly, for all the things you can say about the MCU, maybe the most impressive thing those movies did is somehow make a character called Captain America successful in the rest of the world. That's actually a magic trick. So, congratulations.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's that same sort of thing of, the second movie, The Winter Soldier, where he's like, what does America mean nowadays? Oh, it's that? I ain't cool with that. I'd much rather I go back to what I meant back in the 50s and 40s and whatnot.
But anyway, that's the movie. Honestly, it's light, fluffy, but it has this weird combination, like I said earlier, of being very earnest and clearly in love with what it is. Like, the people behind this seem to really care about He-Man in a way that I can't fathom on a personal level. But it's good that they feel that way, because they should. But it also does all the self-referential, and we have to kind of like not deconstruct, but like poke fun at it. We have to, undercut things by doing a meta joke about how obviously this person's a villain, or the coughing and the smoke during the cool shot, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know, it's kind of like a weird oddity where the the craft of it is definitely better than I think people probably assumed it would be.
I've seen some comparisons online between this and the Dungeons and Dragons movie, where that also was kind of expected to be like just a pathetic cash grab of like, how do you even make that movie, whatever. And yet it has this really diehard fan base that was like, no, this was actually really good and should have been given more attention when it came out. And I see this being that exact same thing happening here.
Yeah, I can see a comparison. I've not seen that movie, but I can see a comparison between them. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I think it's much better than anyone really would have assumed or thought it had any right to be, even based on the trailers. You know, but
yeah. No, I told you my thoughts on the trailer. Yeah. I thought this was going to suck hard, but they pulled it out.
But for me personally, there is absolutely a ceiling, because I just think He-Man and the surrounding property of it is kind of lame. And I never quite got over that. Even, you know, at the end, it never made me care about this as an IP or care about the characters that are in the IP. So, you know.
No, I mean, this was the sort of thing that I was thinking about comparisons back to the Super Mario Brothers movie, the new one, where if you're a fan of the franchise, it rewards that. It drops in all these little references, all these small things, even if you're just vaguely aware. Like, again, the Four Non Blondes song is just an internet meme that happened to evolve He-Man as a character. And I appreciate the awareness. I appreciate the fact that they are putting in that effort to reward that. But it does come at the cost of how much are we making this accessible to people who don't have that sort of backstory? Is it as rewarding for them? And yeah, I think it's a bit of a toss-up, but it is still competently made as a movie, at the very least.
Yeah. No, I would definitely say this is better than that Mario animated movie. Because this actually feels like it's trying to have a story and wants to kind of say something, you know, whereas the Mario movie, I feel like it had mixed messages of like, what's our moral in this? Well, it's either this or this, and they couldn't really decide, so it's kind of a mishmash.
Buy Nintendo. Buy more Nintendo. Yeah. Buy all Nintendo.
So, yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, I'm going to be positive on it, but the rating, but not by like a great ton. It's kind of like, I have no desire to go back and watch this again. And it's almost a shame, because there was definitely a moment early on when the music was kicking in, and I thought, oh, maybe this might win me over, and I don't think it ever completely won me over. Like, it's like, clearly it's getting a little bit towards there, but I think a lot of like this world building and the characters are a little bit lame. Skeletor's kind of a cool villain, actually, but I wish He-Man was a lot more visually interested as a character.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do in terms of, because if anything went to a focus group, I'm sure it's He-Man's costume. I'm sure that's something where they're like, we can't stray too far from the original, but we also need to update it enough to make it
to be clear
its
here,
own thing.
I'm not critiquing the movie for this. I'm critiquing the original design of what He-Man is here. I am saying that right from the get-go, I think it's a lame design, but...
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, that was the thing. The toys were made prior to the cartoon, and they were made with the idea of it's a barbarian man. Like, anything that comes after that is basing its story off the design and not vice versa.
All right, David, let's rate the movie out of 10. What are you giving Masters of the Universe?
Oh, boy. I think going into this movie, I was fully expecting somewhere in like the 5 to 6 range. Like, I think I was expecting it to be, you know, well filmed. It looks like a movie. It looks like an actual studio had some money behind this, but I wasn't expecting to like anything about the plot, the characters, nothing that happens. And then it just won me over. So collectively, I think I'm giving this one a 7.5.
Oh.
I think it's not quite in great territory. There are problems with it, as we have discussed, but I think this is something that's really is, honest to God, surprising to me, of how much the earnestness and how much the love for the like toys and the characters and all that stuff came through and made it feel like this was a project made out of a genuine desire to share this story and not just Mattel wants to make Barbie money again.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously why they want to do it. And why MGM want to make it, but like the people they hired to make the movie seem to actually give a shit about it, and that's
yes,
you know, something that you can hope for, and all you can hope for, really. I'm obviously not going to go as high as that. Like, as much as I was a little bit surprised and I was a little bit more impressed that it was it was aiming for things. We had problems. I think one of the critiques I was getting at earlier about wishing I cared more about the final act. I was just thinking of a scene. It's a scene where Skeletor's with Evelyn and she's talking about, I think, you've got an army that follows you and all that. You've got the power, blah, blah. But I think one of the things that comes up in that scene, separate from his power, is that he's talking about, haven't I, like, won over the hearts and minds of the people of Eternia? And she says something like that. Yes, you've killed thousands to win them over. And I'm like, that's a funny line for, like, your, to say to your dark dictator villain. But it did make me kind of think, well, maybe I'd care more about them winning, like the good guys winning at the end of this, if instead of just hearing this, I actually saw maybe just an example of, like, a village or something where everyone's living in fear. Everyone's like, having a horrible life because Skeletor's been in charge for 15 years. That would have maybe made me care a little bit. And I wish I just had a bit more of a enthusiasm for that. But
yeah,
all that said, like, I think there's some earnestness in there. I think there's some good music, some it was kind of winning me over to a point, but I ultimately just think He-Man's kind of lame. So I think for me, I am capping out here at a 6.5, which is to say that I think it's very decent, and I can see why people would actually think it's good and enjoy it, but I can't really go any higher than that.
That's entirely reasonable.
So there you go. That's Masters of the Universe. And as David alluded to earlier, we have another new release coming next week on the Atomic Sound Experiment. We'll be looking at Disclosure Day, directed by Steven Spielberg. So we'll see how that goes. I assume you got a trailer for it before this one, because I did. I
didn't, actually. No? I had to go to a different theater than I usually do. Because of the showtimes just not lining up with what I needed them to be. And the way they did their trailers, I don't know if this was just like a marketing thing or whatever was going on, but for some reason they would show like a trailer and then it would get intercut with a Minions ad of them like clicking on a desktop and like loading up a file. And they did it like 4 times and I was so sick of it, but none of them were ever Spielberg.
Oh, fair enough. But that's coming next week, so we'll see how that is. It's also worth mentioning, I'll say this now as well as next week. So after Disclosure Day, there's going to be a week with no Ace, because there's going to be a week with 2 Collector's Cuts instead. So if you're not familiar with our other show, Collector's Cut, we're doing the normal number of episodes. We're just doing 2 Collector's Cut that week. But to make up for it, the following week, we're doing 2 of this show. We'll be doing 2 Atomic Cinema Experiments the following week. So if you're on YouTube, it'll basically be like nothing's changed, because you'll get the 2 videos the same 2 times of the week that you normally do. But if you listen to the audio feed for this show and not the other one, you'll probably be like, well, there's no episode this week. That kind of sucks. But there'll be 2 the following week. So check out Collector's Cut for one. And the reason why we're having a week off from Ace is because we're doing the original Supergirl movie on the Tuesday when Ace would normally come out, and then the new Supergirl on the Saturday. So, which is also pretty sci-fi, actually. We're just doing it on Collector's Cut because all the superhero stuff is typically went there, as with Superman last year. So,
I'm pretty sure the whole James Gunn universe is going to be over there.
Yes. Even though some of them are, of course, very science fiction-y, especially Supergirl, because it's all pretty much set in space based on the trailer. But so that's just to warn you in advance. There'll be a week with no Ace, but then 2 Aces the following week, and then back to normal. So just be prepared. And it's not that long until we're back to Jared Leto, everyone, either. So
sorry.
You look forward to that. Anyway, so David's got his homework movie in a second, but I will just first tell you, hey, you want to support the show, help keep it coming, as well as Collector's Cut that we just brought up. You can get the bonus ratings rundown segments for both. You also get access to Extra Reels, a monthly show we do where we do some of the worst movies ever made. Coming up later this month is Catwoman, the Halle Berry movie, on that show, but that's like in the 40s now. There's a whole back catalogue to check out, as well as bonuses for other Male Fuzz movies and TV content. But that's Patreon, patreon.com/MaleFuzzTV to support and get all that stuff. Most of it you can also get alternatively via YouTube membership if that's more convenient. But thanks to everyone who already does support us. And of course you can like, subscribe, give us 5 stars in your podcast app. All those things do help out as well. So every week David goes back, checks out a movie before he joined the show so he can be eventually caught up and have seen all the same sci-fi movies. David, what was this week's homework movie?
Well, I did some digging and I found another movie that is about a blonde main character who is brought into a confusing world full of flying cars and other futuristic items and whatever else like that. It's Meet the Robinsons, the Disney time travel film.
You could have given me 5 years and I would never have stumbled onto that one.
Yeah. So, I mean, just full disclosure for anybody who's sticking around for this part. Eventually, we have a countdown coming up of 2000s films, and technically this falls under the purview of might maybe be able to make the list. So I got to at least give it a shot.
Someone rated it fairly positively at the time anyway.
Yes, fair enough. But I had to at least give it a shot. I did see this one before, God, probably like when it came out. Like, I was still of the age to watch that stuff. But, I mean, it's a fine movie. It's an okay movie. I think my biggest thing with it is that there's a large portion of this that feels more concerned with just jingling keys and like flashy visuals and stuff like that than it feels like actually telling a story. But then by the time the third act rolls around, it feels like it's more concerned about the story than it does about like actually being an interesting and engaging plot, because like it just kind of is like, well, let's just wrap this up and get all those story beats out of the way. So at every point it has something going on with it that's kind of like, it's not great, but overall the product is fine. In terms of the visual style, though, I do want to point out that this is whatever Disney was doing at this point, they didn't quite have viscous liquids down yet in terms of like the special effects, and yet they insisted on using it constantly, and every time it looked bad. Like on every single surface it's like, oh, peanut butter and jelly, bad. Some sort of lava effect, bad. Like it just, I don't know why they kept thinking they could. So overall, I'm a sucker for a time travel movie, but this is like bare minimum of qualifying for a time travel movie. It barely touches on anything. So I think I'll probably be siding with Pete's score and saying a 6 on this one.
All right. Well, I don't remember a goddamn thing about this movie, so usually I'll offer a little opinion or two here, but like, I don't remember anything, so...
It's an animated Disney film. I'm honestly shocked that you did it.
Do you think it was my idea, David?
I'm confused as to whether or not it's Tara's or the audience.
Oh, it was hers. It was hers.
Okay. Fair enough. Weird that she only gave it a 7 then. You'd think if she chose it, she'd be like, oh, it's an 8.5.
Maybe she remembered it being better. I don't know. But like, yeah. I was pestered into adding it to the schedule, and then, do you know what I remember about that movie? Actually, the one thing I remember is that when it was added to the schedule, I did not know it was an animated movie. It wasn't until I sat down to go find it to watch it that I'm like, oh, this is an animated movie. I did not know that.
You would have pushed so much harder against it if you did.
I probably, but who?
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go. That is the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer at Salsa.